Welcome to another series preview media availability edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. After getting swept by Maryland, the Indiana University baseball team will travel to Evanston, Illinois for a series at Northwestern. Indiana will then travel to Xavier for a newly scheduled midweek matchup on Wednesday, May 10th. The media met with Coach Mercer to discuss the series, discuss how the team plans to move on from the Maryland series, and challenging themselves with an extended road trip.
Typically ask you every week, but have you kind of decided what the weekend starters are going to be?
Yeah, so actually we will make a bit of an adjustment this week. So we'll go Sonard on Friday, and then we'll TBD Saturday and Sunday, kind of post-game there. We've kind of talked about it for a couple of weeks, and we've kind of talked about it in the room here, but just kind of getting things lined up for the kind of the last month, and last year we didn't really have a chance to set the deck kind of going into the Big Ten tournament and then hopefully there beyond, and kind of got caught there in between. We didn't have much of a choice, but we got to that Thursday because it goes Friday, Thursday, and then this year it's up to Tuesday in the conference tournament. Tuesday or Wednesday, kind of depends on where you're at in the standings, but. So we got to that Thursday of that last week, and we just didn't have anybody, one of our normal guys that could throw Thursday, and just kind of put the team in a tough spot. Now, we couldn't do anything differently because we had to win to get in, so we had to keep the last weekend, kind of that rotation the same. So, but we'll go with Luke on Friday, and then be able to go TBD on Saturday and Sunday, and then obviously, you feel like Kraft is stretched out to where he could be a starter as well, and Reisdorf and Phillips, where they could go on a Sunday potentially. Seti obviously could still be in that conversation going into Sunday, but it does give us a chance to, in a healthy way, get Luke ready to go for kind of down the stretch. And so what you don't want to do is kind of go into hopefully the Big Ten tournament for us, and hopefully beyond, is then put him in a position where you're rushing him those last 2 weeks to get him up a couple of days. And you don't want to get caught in a position where you get to the Big Ten tournament. And probably your most prototypical starter for us isn't available until Thursday of that week, and we're kind of in a tough spot. So we'll kind of start that transition for him, and we've done a good job, managing in general, and he's been a huge part of that kind of the system that we've run to allow us to find our first spot where we feel like we can really take a game and use Crafty, knowing that we have Sonard on Saturday to kind of stabilize everything, and then kind of manage on Sunday as well with Seti or whoever. But it's just time for us to kind of go into kind of the next phase of it, and Luke's the guy for us to do that. One, we need to get him prepared for like kind of that last month run, but also it's time for the guys to go and do it now, right? We're in a position now. We've done a really good job managing and kind of trying to grow up, right? Grow the young guys up and develop them, and now it's time to just go play ball and allow those guys. They're just going to have to go do it.
So kind of to clarify, with him being game one in the Big Ten tournament, that's also setting him up for a potential game one in a regional?
Well, yes, potentially. So the difference being is, could you ever get him to game one? I don't know. If you can get him to game one in the Big Ten tournament. So if it's a Tuesday game or a Wednesday game, even then it's still hard to get him there, but you got to get him as close as you can. And really the only way for us to do that is over the last 3 or 4 weeks to kind of gradually work him. So it'll go Friday, and then the last week is Thursday. And then that way, the only chance you could even get him to potentially a Wednesday is if we started now. So that way you don't have to go a week short, and kind of going into it. So we'll just kind of gradually get him there.
But that'd be the same thing for your competition. Essentially, that Tuesday is going to be a midweek game, in essence, for anybody.
Yes, exactly. Unless you're in such a position where you
can skip him.
You could skip somebody, and then, or if somebody's in a position where a guy throws 50 pitches and then is up for Tuesday, or you skip a guy like you said. So if you're in that position, you obviously have a major advantage going into that. But yeah, most everybody will be in that position as well.
Fridays in the Big Ten have been difficult from an offensive perspective. Yeah. So what are you thinking coming into this series? What can you do to try to get the offense going a little sooner in the series?
No, you're 100%. And that's the conversation we've had kind of internally is, moving Sonard to Friday is dependent upon the offense to have the ability to manage. You have to have, it just takes some responsibility for those guys to be able to do that. So, the big thing for us in a Friday game is we've got to be able to adjust more quickly to what's happening. Where it's whether it's the four seam or a sinker or whatever it is. It just can't take us 2 or 3 times to the lineup. So I've tried to make a few adjustments in using more of the spin ball stuff again, and I've made a few adjustments with some guys' swings at Hunter and Josh Pine a little bit, Bobby and Glasser. So maybe we can be a little bit more adjustable to some more higher premium stuff. The way that we train is we have to mechanically, it makes us a little bit more exposed to sinkers and changeups. And so we've tried really hard throughout the course of the year to expose them to more of that stuff. So maybe making a few adjustments with how we're starting in our position a little bit, and then to make sure that they're seeing a bunch of those in the course of our training environment to just get them ready to go. Like, we got to get off to a good start. We got to get the thing off the ground and get started there. So that would be kind of the big thing for us. Is the rest of it's baseball, right? The rest of it's negligible and pretty common sense. But for the things that we've done, I have tried to make a few adjustments with guys' setups to be a little bit more adjustable, and I've tried to show more sinkers and things like that on the spin ball machine to hopefully help us to get off to a little bit better start, because typically those are the guys that we have struggled more against. But it's a double-edged sword where if we're not kind of in the positions that we're in from a physical standpoint, it's harder to transition quickly. And so with us playing so many young guys, we have to get them ready to play right away, but you also can have there's always two sides to everything. And so we've done a good job of getting guys ready, but we also have to make sure that they're capable of handling a variety of pitches, and the sinker and changeup being kind of the priority for us to be ready for.
With Maryland being the first series loss in 2 months,
Yeah.
so that the team is very player-led, what have the messages been like heading into this weekend?
It's been really good, and I don't just say that. I mean, I would tell you otherwise. Where I thought if we were, in a kind of a different spot, but I just think they understand. Like, sometimes it just happens. It wasn't, we talked about it Friday. I didn't think we didn't respond great, but Saturday it's a close game up. It's a good game until like the 8th inning, and then Sunday it's 7-7 into the 8th inning, 7th or 8th inning, and so they responded well, and like everything that we value, they did to the best of their abilities. It just didn't work, and so I think that they can let that go. I think they can understand that that's just part of it. It's not the end all be all, and in the attitude, from Bobby and Phillip and all those guys has been good. They've handled it. Practice was lighthearted the last couple of days, and it wasn't super serious, and guys didn't seem to make more of it than what it was. And you're always curious how guys are going to handle it. Body language and communication, and how are they around you, or, guys going to be awkward and all those different things, especially because we've won so much that it's kind of a different experience. Like, wow, this is different. So, I really haven't had to have additional conversations. I haven't had to, it's just been kind of like business as usual, which is, again, the indication of those guys being able to manage themselves within. So I've been really pleased, to be honest.
The road performance has improved gradually over the course of the season. You're now, I think, at 8 and 9. Now you're heading into you both have a weekend series and now a midweek that's on the road. What are you hoping to see in the process of just being on the road and what they can do on the road?
Yeah, as a hitting guy, I always kind of like the ability to hit first, right? You have a chance to kind of strike first, and you're literally and figuratively more offensive. So I like that. I would like for us to be able to get off to a good start in those ball games. I would like for us to not have to have, and this is a hitting guy where you're like, I need 1,000 swings to get myself ready to play the game today. We need to be able to get our work in this week, which honestly, not having a midweek game has been good, where we can get some more work in. But we just need to be able to go and get our work in the cages in and then go play. And our guys work really hard. They are such a hardworking group. And sometimes you can become so dependent upon that you don't have as much confidence. And it's like, hey, man, there's nothing today in the 30 minutes before the game that's going to change your ability to play. Like, go be confident and compete, believe in yourself. So I guess that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see us get off to a good start. I'd like to see us be confident in a different environment where they're not, those guys are here at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, once because I have class on Fridays, typically it's all online. And so those guys are here at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning hitting for like 5 hours before the game. We can go and score runs. We can produce offensively without having to have all of those amenities at our disposal. And from a pitching standpoint, we've pitched similarly on the road as to home. I think it'll be just about, matchups and conditions and those kind of things. But with going Friday, you obviously you feel good about that. You're going to have a chance to go and compete immediately, and so I would like to see us be confident in ourselves offensively. I'd like to see us not have to have the so much of a pregame to be able to compete, and I'd like to see some of the work we've done this week translate for more production.
Against Maryland, there was a lot of home runs hit. Was there sort of, what would you kind of attribute that to?
Obviously for them.
Or for you.
Yeah. But just the wind blowing. Honestly, I'm not trying to, we did a good job, hit the ball hard, but the wind was blowing out 25 miles an hour, which helps both sides, but we did too. And the Carter's like a diesel engine, right? He kind of gets a little time and gets warmed up, and he's playing really well right now. Had some live at bats today, and he's swinging the bat really well. So he kind of did the same thing last year, where he kind of got going down the stretch, and Devin's Devin, right? So he's special. But you could see some of the other stuff where you get a little bit of an advantage to have a bit of the wind blowing. Tyler's doing a good job. So we got better offensively over the course of the weekend, which was really good to see. And you typically see that. We kind of got punched in the mouth Friday with a good arm. The kid on Saturday was exceptional. And so then Sunday you kind of have like a resurgence again once you kind of get acclimated to that level of pitching once more. So, guys are hitting the ball hard, which is good, but you also had a really, an offensive day to hit the ball hard in. We kind of joked beforehand, but, we practiced today and the wind's blowing in, 15, 20 miles an hour. And I was kind of joking. I was like, I wish we had that day on Sunday, but guys weren't hitting the ball, as far. So I would say the guys are getting better, did a good job, but also it was good hitting conditions too.
Would you say that, there's been some track record of your team being actually quite good against guys who have a significant track record?
Yes.
Is that kind of a preparation? Is that a true statement, first of all? And if so, what do you attribute that to?
Yes, it is true. It's easier. Now, this is just human nature. It's easier to have I'm going to indict myself to a degree, but it's easier to get a group fired up to go compete every pitch, because baseball is an everyday sport, and it's like every day you give them the scouting report, and you go in there. It's like, well, it's the same sequence and the same scouting report because the guys are similar, right? And it's an everyday sport. But when you have a guy that has stuff and a guy has a track record, and all of a sudden you can go in and you can post an article about so and so's going to be this in the draft, and so and so's going to be this and that. It does help you to be able to get a group focused, and that's typically what our when you ebb and flow, it's in baseball, it's typically focused. Can you keep a group focused over 60 games, and can you keep them locked in? And that's always the hard part. They're still young. We're not 27, 28, 29 years old. And so keeping them focused and keeping them engaged is really important. We have similar scouting reports, regardless. But I also would say the more a guy's thrown, the more dramatic his tendencies can be. And so you can also help them more so. For example, I can remember we played East Carolina. They had a lefty, actually is a position player now in the big leagues. But he had a really, really dramatic tendency with his pitch calling, pitch selection. And so I told him the first time through the lineup, I was like, we're just going to take the change up the first time through and make him establish he can throw for a strike. And the second time, once you've seen it, then we can go on it. And I can remember Grant Richardson took it the first time through. Second time through, I kind of gave him like the nod, like, okay, it's time to go. And ended up hitting a 3-run home run, a changeup, and we blew it open. And the guy thought we were picking his pitches and all kind of stuff. And he was a great player, but he'd started like 40 games. You had all these numbers and all these tendencies, and you could put together a really advanced scouting report. When we played Ohio State, the first game with that kid he'd thrown against us before. There's so much data, summer ball and college, a really heavy amount of information. So you could put together, exactly what he's going to do. You can program it and go. And so sometimes when there's a guy there's not as much information, it's harder. But also when a guy's good, it's easier to get the guys fired up. So that's.
Like for an example, like McCoy this weekend, because you said that he kind of actually looked different than what his profile was.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I was joking with their coach beforehand. It was really unfortunate. He was hurt a couple weeks ago, got hit, and missed some time. And so, he was like, I was joking. I was like, Rob, he's like 89, 91. Where did 92 to 95 with 18 inches of horizontal action come from? He's like, he's done it before, but for 7 innings, and it was just like, he was just like transcendent. He was like a first round. It was a first round performance. It was incredible. It's way harder when like your scouting report says he's probably going to be 90, 91 or 89, 92, whatever it is, and then he comes out and he's 92, 95 like an incredible sinker. So that part gets really hard when that kind of stuff happens. I didn't think, like Dean on Friday, I didn't think he was dramatically different than what we thought he was going to be. We just didn't execute to the plan. But when McCoy came out on Saturday and the first 3 pitches were 94, 95, I kind of thought this might be a tough day for us. But then we did a really good job against Savacool, right? Who's kicked our butt a couple times and pitched really well against us, and we made a really good adjustment to him. And again, you've seen him before, you've seen a bunch of video, you know the data, and he's a guy, and we came out and swung the bat really well against him.
Ryan has pitched really well out of the bullpen, and
yeah.
Maryland's kind of an anomaly because their offense is so good. But have you considered keeping him in the bullpen just for sake of comfortableness?
It was a huge point of conversation for us for the last month. Is he the same? Okay, are the 6 innings the same out of the pen as the 6 innings the same as a starter? And you may get to a point eventually where it just doesn't matter. You're just going to have to do it because you have to do it. That's been a huge point for us. Is like he's been so good out of the pen. Do you change it because you don't know what you're going to get? And although I think Ryan is incredibly mature and very composed, I think he would be just fine as it. When you're winning 70% of your games and he's pitching at like a .9 ERA, it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and just keep kind of doing the same thing. And as long as he keeps getting his workload up to where he could potentially be a starter, I'm comfortable doing whatever we need to do. We just, kind of like we always say, you just find a way to grab 1 win, and then we'll worry about tomorrow because you might score 10 runs. And it would be nice if he eventually could be a starter, but we got to win Friday, and if you need him to win on Friday, then you have to do that. That was you hit the nail on the head there. That was a big time conversation we've had. Is it the same? Are you getting the same production as a starter? Because you could use him after Senard. That's such a different look where you're getting 1 or 2 outs, maybe even 3 outs, just based on the different look. If I tell you today Ryan Kraft is starting, and you do 4 days of scouting reports, and you put him in the spin ball machine, and you don't have anything else to reference him to, he may not be quite as effective without coming in after somebody else, and you don't know who's coming in. Kraft, which one's Kraft again? He's the one that's from here, and there's a little bit of scrambleness, and you can usually steal some outs that way.
Is there also the concern there, though, because you are so extended with him that moving him around at different days of the week from an arm care perspective, I think would have to be a challenge.
It's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, it's what we haven't. We kind of went from like he's up every day to where it's like he's gonna make his run. Like he's gonna go 4 to 6 innings, and that's gonna be it for the week. And we've kind of transitioned him more into that role. Unless, somebody else goes 8 and he closes it, right? That would be the only time that we would bring him up a second time. But we have really tried hard to not get him up and down 3 times. It's, hey, get up, get down. Hey, get up, get down. It's like, no, hey, you're going to get up in the 4th and you're going in the game, and that's it. So managing him to the best of our abilities as far as like just not being careless about when he gets up in the pen, and, how short of rest he's on, and how we manage his midweek pens. And he's a really super mature kid to where he knows his body and communicates those things really well. But yeah, it's something we, like number 1 on the list is like Senard, how's he feeling? Then Kraft, how's he feeling? It's kind of the topic of every day.
A lot of freshmen, I guess, up to that Maryland lineup, had a really good stretch of a lot of good innings.
Yeah.
Have you kind of noticed maybe like a confidence hit?
Yeah. Big time. Oh, you mean like from this past weekend?
From the freshmen having a really good stretch and then going to the Maryland line.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, you're also the human, right? You're gonna have a little bit of like, well, that didn't go as I had hoped, and it's like, move on. It's okay. Like you're doing a really good job. You ran into a buzzsaw for a day there, but you got to have a relationship with them where they know it's okay to fail, and fail with great effort, with great intent, doing a good job. We didn't walk the bases loaded and then hit two guys and the guy throws the ball in the gap. They just clubbed you, right? And then sometimes that happens. And so I think that part, knowing that you're in the fight with them, you believe in them, we kind of joke about it a little bit, welcome to college baseball and all that good stuff. So I think they'll be fine. They're just going to kind of move forward. And so those guys through today, Phillips and Reisdorf were both really good, and Foley was good. So I think they'll be fine. And they have had enough success under their belt now that you can have something to rely back on. You have something to fall back on. Where it's like, hey, you've done it, you've been there before. You just kind of move forward, and if you play the game long enough, it's going to happen. I did think it was pretty funny. That was really a masterstroke of coaching from Coach Glant. He kind of sent out to the group, the pitchers group. He said, "Hey man, like it happens to the best of us," and it showed like his pitching line from one game at Purdue. It was like 0.1 innings, 3 walks, 4 hits, 7 runs, or something like that. He's like, "This was my draft year. It happens to the best of us. Like, move on." And he went on to play pro ball for a long time, and so I thought that was a really smart move. It's like we've all been there. We've all had one of those days, and I joked with him. I remember my sophomore year of college, first week back, I played really well. And I conference player of the week my first week. Second week, I played doubleheader on Saturday. Rained out Friday, doubleheader Saturday. I was 0 for 8 with 7 strikeouts. And I can remember the guy in the stands kept yelling at me like if I was on scholarship that I should give my money back. And I laughed because I wasn't on scholarship. So it was like there's nothing to give back. And I got to an 0-2 count in my 8th at bat. And I remember the guy, when the people yelling at me was like, "Dear God, if you strike out again," he was like, and whatever it was, you yell at me. And I ground out to the second baseman. I'd never been so happy to have a ground out to the second baseman in my life. And then we got to the 9th inning and we were winning at the second game. Lead off out, ground ball back to the pitcher. He ran over to me at first base and he underhand tossed it to me. And I dropped the ball. And the leadoff runner was on, and that guy went on to score, and we ended up losing the game. So we've all been there. Like, I was there as a player, Coach Clint was there as a player. And so you tell those guys those stories and try to help them understand, like, it's not always your day, but it's not always not going to be your day. And, you play this game long enough, it's going to happen.
Do you know when Glant sent that to the freshman pitchers?
He sent it to the whole pitching staff. It was like, it's probably Sunday night. It was Sunday night after the end of the weekend. It was funny because I was putting the kids to bed. We were all kind of laying there reading a book, the three of us, and I got a ding, and I looked at it, and I started just busting up laughing as I read it. And my son Grady was like, "What's so funny, Dad?" I was like trying to explain that to a 4-year-old. He can't comprehend it, but I thought it was so funny. And just a mark of a good coach, man. Just somebody that's able to be like in the boat with you, rowing the same direction, that has, I've been there, boys. That's going to be okay. You're doing a great job. You're going to the weekend with leading the Big Ten in the ERA in conference play, and have a bad weekend. Sometimes you get your butt kicked. So yeah, it was Sunday night. I remember that now because I was putting the kids to bed, and I texted him. I was like, "Man, that was it was just a really, really good move on your part." So we've all been there.
So it was sorry, I keep
That's
clarifying,
okay.
but just I find it cool.
Yeah.
So it was a text to like a group chat?
Yeah, so we have like the team group, you have the pitchers group, and then you have the hitters group. And I'm in all of them, obviously.
Right.
And so I just saw the ding come through, and it had the kind of picture of his box score, and he kind of explained the situation, kind of what it was. And he was like, "This was my draft year, and Point got 1 out and 7 earned runs, and so all the guys liked it, and it was just kind of funny."
Do you think the team's feeling good about the slight schedule shift, trying to get a little bit better competition next week?
Yeah, I think I just I explained it a little bit to him, and just kind of told him, it's our responsibility to put you guys in the best position to be successful, and as coaches, that's our job, and you guys just go out and play the game and do what you always do and do the best you can. But yeah, they understood, and we're, I think, probably excited. I think I didn't go into too much depth with it, but I think they kind of got the gist of it, and it was something that we had talked about for a couple of weeks potentially doing. And this last weekend didn't really have much to do with it, but it was just kind of the ball's in motion, and let's kind of finish it. So, but yeah, it seemed like they were in a good spot with it. And Devin smiled because he's from Cincinnati, so he gets to go back home.
Yeah.
He gets to go back.
Because he had about 50 people there last time.
He
So.
did. He had like half the city was out. He sent over a picture of him and everybody, the whole family, and they had, like the whole group there. It was really cool. It was really cool because I've seen so many of them, met so many of them over the years, and to get to go back into your hometown and play, and then hit essentially the game-winning home run. And I mean, they were hooting and hollering and fired up, and I was hooting and hollering too to get that one. But no, it was really cool. Really cool. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this media availability edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. Indiana travels to Northwestern. The series starts Friday, May 5th at 4 p.m. on B1G+. See you at the BART.